Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Franchise Show. I hope you're all doing well. This is the show where and I'm going to do it, we get under the hat of all things franchising, and I hope you're all doing well. Now, this is a live show. Well, it's live if it's October 28th at about 5:15 in the UK and 12:15 in bits of America. And because it's live, we love to say hello and we love you to get involved in the show. So please, if you're here live, pop up a comment, say hello, and get involved in our conversation, because I say it every week, you are the directors and the producers of this show, and the direction of our conversation goes the way you want it to go. So please pop up a comment and get involved in our conversations today. So what do we do? Each week on the Franchise Show, we take a new topic and we take a lovely guest to have a chat with that topic. And we have a fantastic guest this week, a returning guest, supporter, long-time supporter of the show. And I've been a long-time supporter of Penny. It's Penny Hopkinson. Welcome back to the Franchise Show.
Thank you, Harvey. I'm delighted to be back again.
Well, it's fantastic to have you with us. And before we welcome anybody who is with us here live, I know lots of people will know you, Penny, but perhaps you could give us a little introduction to yourself, to Manual Magic, and to the new people who haven't heard about that. That would be fantastic.
I'd love to do that. Well, many of you will know me as the founder of Manual Writers International, and that's where I've traditionally helped franchisors, licensors, and multi-site businesses create world-class operations manuals. But in 2023, I published my book, Manual Magic, Create the Operations Manual Your Franchisees Need to Succeed. And now everybody knows me as Manual Magic. So not only did I publish the book, which has become something of a disruptor, but I've now turned it into Manual Magic AI, which launches in January. And that's where you can create world-class manuals using your intellectual property and do it in up to, I think it's about 75% quicker.
Wow, 75% quicker. Because I mean, the idea for me of creating an ops manual, in fact, doing any kind of admin whatsoever, is something that I dread. And you know, the first part of creating a franchise business, there's a lot of admin. You know, you've got this amazing idea, you've got this exciting thing you're doing, but then you have to create an ops manual, you have to create a franchise agreement, you have to create other documents depending on where you are in the world. And often these founders, people who are excited about their business, this isn't the most exciting thing to do. And you know, the idea of being able to save 75% of the time. When you say IP, what elements do you mean? Are you talking about the agreement, and are you talking about some of those other documents? Would you create those first, then do your manual using this software?
That's an interesting subject. I mean, many people or most people have got some intellectual property. So if you're a franchisor, you will have a franchise agreement. So that's the first thing that you would upload, because you've got basically all your terms, heads of terms, and those become your quality standards. So that's the first document. If you've got your business plan and your marketing plan, that can be uploaded. Any blogs, any promotional material, even videos, scattered notes. You know, there are many people who've got lots of notes around their computers. Me, post-it notes, you can add scribbled notes, absolutely anything you've got, and the system will sort it into my 6 categories, which are the introduction, new business setup and support, your team, marketing and promotion, day-to-day operating requirements, and development, growth, and profit, which is the one that everybody forgets. And that's the one that everybody needs.
Absolutely.
So what it does, it sorts them into those categories, which basically follow the balanced scorecard, if you're familiar with that. And then it starts building your SOPs. So it gets to as far as it possibly can. You can interrogate the system with Ask Your Wizard, and the wizard will answer the question. So you might say to it, well, we've got this set of SOPs under marketing and promotion, but tell me, is there a gap between what we've got and what the franchise agreement has? And it'll come back and tell you.
Wow, fantastic. That's amazing. And I like the idea of asking a wizard as well. I've got some very grand pictures of Harry Potter in my mind here.
Well, we have a little wizard's hat.
Excellent.
And of course, that goes with magic.
Well, I'm all up for wearing a hat, wizard hat or anything. So I love that.
Oh, that's for Halloween.
Yeah, yes, maybe I should. Maybe I should. Well, look, before we get further into today's topic, let's welcome a few people who have joined us here live already. We have the lovely Simon Wise. He's put hello, franchise friends. It's great to have you with us, Simon. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on franchise success and how we get there. You know, Simon is a recruiter, looks after all the people in our businesses. So, you know, perhaps you can give us some examples of perhaps how people in a business help us get to that success. We have the lovely Neil Newman, one of our supporters from Gather. He's put, hello, Penny and Harvey. I hope you bought Penny's book and you hold it the right way up. Well, of course I bought Penny's book. Will I hold it the right way up? Oh, no, I didn't. But if you want to get your ops manuals the right way round, then you need to talk to Penny down there. Great to have you with us, Neil. Who else have we got with us? We have the fantastic Nick Pleven. Nick is from eTalent, has been a guest on the show, is one of our lovely supporters, and he's put, hello both, looking forward to this session. Well, we're looking forward to it too, and thanks for being with us, Nick. Again, Nick is a people expert and helps our businesses find the right people using psychometrics and all sorts of clever tools. So, Nick, if you've got any thoughts on soft skills and how those create a smarter path to franchise success, then please pop in a comment and get involved in this conversation. And look, we've got the lovely Johnny Joseph with us. Johnny, always fantastic to have you with us. Johnny's put, fellow franchise friends, hi from a cooler Los Angeles, but home to the very hot LA Dodgers. What a game last night. Well, if you're a fan of that, I'm sure you know all about it. But it's every time Johnny comes on, it's always sunny and hot in Los Angeles. Interesting to know that they have a little bit of cold like we do. Anyway, look, let's get into this. Penny, I think let's start by trying to define what we mean by franchise success. I think because today's topic is all about defining a pathway towards this success. So how would you define franchise success? What does that mean to you?
I think this is a very sort of personal view, but success is twofold. It's the personal satisfaction of running a business that is becoming and will be profitable.
Mm-hmm.
The personal side of it is if you enjoy what you're doing, you are probably going to be successful. So you need all the support systems that are available, and of course the right franchisor to help you deliver them. To be successful, you're there. You've bought into a franchise because you want to run a successful business and make a profit and have the kind of lifestyle that you feel is one that you aspire to.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the lovely John Hewitt, and I always remember this, he said to me that successful franchises are, or to have a profitable and successful franchisor business, you need happy, successful franchisees, you know, and a big part of this was successful. Now, a lot of that success part of it goes towards a monetary thing, but actually, success has got all sorts of other elements to it, doesn't it? You know, it's not just about being profitable or having a high turnover or, you know, or making these numbers. Being successful is about inspiring your peers, you know, giving your employees the right treatment and looking after them, and also your customers as well. You know, particularly in franchising, you've got these layers of success, haven't you?
You definitely do. And I always say that the franchisors' internal customers, the franchisees, are the ones that you really need to nurture and make sure that they are enjoying as well as working at what they do.
Mhm.
Um, Therefore, that will reflect on their teams. And I've got a little incentive program that I put in, which helps continuous improvement. And that is all about motivating your teams to make small tweaks that make a mighty difference across a network. And incentivizing them, offering £100 voucher for the best team innovation or tweak of the month, which is run by the franchisor. So a leaderboard is created, and at the end of the year for the conference, the team and the person who has made the biggest impact across the network, that person might get, let's say, £1,000 to do what they want, and the team is given, let's say, a £3,000 prize to go towards further training of their choice.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, incentives towards success are really important. You know, people have got to be able to work towards something in order to gauge their success and gauge their team's success as well. Um, so, how do we use our manuals? How do we use this software to sort of monitor this pathway? And how do we create success through the platform?
I think that you need to have a multimedia platform, one that appeals to the generations that you employ. Now, it is possible to have up to 5 generations under one workplace. But if you look at hospitality, you've probably got mostly young millennials and Gen Z. And Gen Z in particular learn very differently. They are the YouTube, TikTok, Instagram generation. And that is how they learn. They learn from their peers. And this is the bottom up, not top down approach, because they do not appreciate the sort of big corporate look.
Mm,
And what motivates them is being part of the organization, making a difference, feeling valued. and they choose their employer, not the other way around. They choose their employer that aligns with their values.
Mm.
So it's a very, very different prospect.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting the way you said there that they choose their employer. And I think you're absolutely right. And I think probably Simon and Nick would have something to say on this. But I think there's a very different culture. There's very different things that you have to put in place for an employee to feel nurtured, like you said there, and to feel happy, and to learn and to be part of that success. It's very different to what it was 5 years ago, certainly 10 or 15 years ago.
And,
Things have to move at a pace.
and certainly very different from when I first started out. But, I'm a baby boomer and I love nothing more than text. I mean, okay, yes, I do go to YouTube. But essentially, you've got this great disparity between the two generations. And you find these days in a coffee shop, for example, you've got an older generation coming in their 50s and 60s.
Mm.
And then you've got the young generation, and the two do not learn in the same way. And you've also got the different, apart from the different learning styles, you've got the different learning abilities. So Gen Z will not read walls of text. So what happens is they do it their own way. And their own way can be a disaster. So we have to really look at the profile, not just of our franchisees, but of the teams and how they're going to learn best and quickest.
Mm.
We also have a problem that in a large franchise, for example, you take Costa Coffee, when I did their manual back in 2006 to 2009, so it took us 3 years to do 5 volumes. You had about 2,500 network. Today they're 4,000. How do you get a uniform training quality? You can't possibly do that. And also you get a franchise manager who says, oh, I've got something really important to do. Can you train Charlie, for example? So the quality of training diminishes. So what we're after is a single source of truth. And that today is video.
I think that's really interesting. Getting that uniform training quality is really hard. Often, a new employee that doesn't understand a system is taught by an employee that is leaving or that has lost faith or yeah. And to have those two things mixed together is not going to be a very good start to an employment. So I think you're right. How do you spoke there, we've got some great comments coming up, so I'm going to get to those in a minute. But how do you start? You mentioned there about different learning styles, different learning abilities. When you've got the AI software in place, does it have the ability to be able to identify different learning styles and abilities by the questions that individuals ask it?
Well, if you're dealing with video, there are different mechanisms. For example, somebody who is slightly visually impaired would want to listen to it. So what you do is you take a video process that is created on a smartphone by one of the team members. or two members of the team sometimes if you need to film the process, and that is chopped into little bite-sized snippets, captioned, and then put up on a platform. It can be read in any language. It can be listened to in any language. And you can take it at your pace.
It's really interesting, especially what you said there about language as well, because when you're looking at expanding your model, the idea of changing it to another culture, another language, is really hard to get all of those things in place and to properly get the nuances of your values across in a different culture. Really hard.
Yes.
It's obviously going to make that process much easier.
And also, of course, the traditional way was that you had the manual translated, and we used to say it has to be translated where that language is spoken. Because I remember doing a manual, somebody gave me a manual that was originally in Dutch and it was translated into English. It looked really impressive until I started to read it and realized that every line had been translated extremely badly.
Right.
When they should have looked at a paragraph and then translated it with all the, as you said, all the nuances. And I had to say to rather a large company, a multinational, that was in almost every country in the world, this manual just is rubbish. I thought I was going to lose the contract. And fortunately, they realized when I pointed out line for line that nothing meant anything.
Really important, those nuances, so important.
So by doing it in this way, not only do you get across, do you obviate the problem of translating in the country of origin, but it automatically does it with AI, and it does it well.
You know, AI, it's all to do with where it's pulling the information from and how you position the question to it. And if you can get those two things right, now where it's pulling the information from is a nice simple one because of the fact that it's pulling it from the IP of a particular franchise model. Fantastic. Look, before we get into, I was going to talk about prompts actually, but before we get into that, I want to make sure we recognize everybody who's here. So let's have a little look. We have let's welcome Tim Morris to the show. Always great to have Tim with us. Tim is one of our lovely supporters from the bridge. He's put evening everyone, sorry I'm late again. No problem, you can join us anytime, Tim. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts, and I think we've got a good comment coming up from Tim as well. We've got a comment here from Simon. Simon's put the smarter path to franchise success, follow the system. That's an interesting one. We've got a couple of questions coming up from Tim and from Simon. But before we get to those, let's address this, and then I'm going to have to go back to the fact that I wanted to talk about prompts. But look, I want to get to everything that our fantastic audience and community want to talk about. So how do you react to this one about following the system? Is that intuitively in the software because of the fact that it's based solely on that system?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, look, and that's really valuable because following the system is what franchising is all about, isn't it?
Absolutely. The only thing that I would say is that every franchise has a tweak that they make somewhere. And generally speaking, this is not communicated to the franchisor. So when the business development or the business support team go visiting, They don't. The first thing they miss is whether a tweak has been made and made it more efficient. So what we should really be doing is building into the system a mechanism for identifying little tweaks, capturing them, and sharing them.
Yeah, and having a mechanism to make sure that wherever that idea has come from, that it's pushed into the system in the right way, it's looked at by the right people, and then
Yeah.
it's filtered down, if appropriate, back
Yeah.
into the system to
Yeah.
then go out to the wider network. But
Yes.
most franchisors have a mechanism for tweaks to the system, as you've said there, or ideas, but it's normally some very boring form that you've got to fill in and you won't hear back on it. But if it's a true reactive instant system, that you put in something into a system and comes back and it tells you, you know, what's happening with that idea or with that tweak. Really interesting stuff. Let's have a look at a couple more comments from Simon. Excuse me. You tell it's live. There we go. But from Simon and from Tim, before we get to, I'm gonna have to write down the word. I'm gonna have to write a prompt down here because I want to talk about it. Let's have a look at Simon's comment first. Simon has put, I think we need to go deeper to find the secret source to franchise success. For the franchisee, it starts with choosing the right franchise. The capital invest to achieve the full potential, and then support the franchisor to get you there. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how do you think these elements fit into a manual? I suppose they're part of the IP, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, absolutely. If you can capture the IP, and the system will deal with it successfully to create proper SOPs, and informed ones that are that you put the final touch to, and then you can get input from franchisees, then I think, you know, going a long way to getting something that will really lead to success.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting to hear you say about putting the sort of the final touches to things, because my view with AI, or my experiences with it so far, is I think it's fantastic. I think it's an amazing tool, and often it can give us the framework that we need in order to build our fantastic ideas and in order for our teams to be successful. It provides that structure that we can, like you say, put the finishing touches on. I was talking to someone today, actually, that if you were asked to come up with the full idea, the full structure of something, whether that's a business or just even drafting an email, that's often much harder than it is to think, to get something that somebody else, or in this case AI, has done, and go, okay, that's great, but I wouldn't mind just tweaking this element or changing that element. So I think it's really important that you have the strong basis, like you say, of the IP of a franchise business, whatever your franchise business is, and then you're tweaking that and you're checking it, aren't you? Excellent, good stuff. Let's have a little look. Oh, Penny is gone.
I've come
Penny
back.
is back. You're just proving it's live for me there, aren't you?
Apparently we lost the connection for some reason. I have no idea why.
There you go. You're back. I had to do about 8 minutes of one of these on my own, and I realised that me talking to just me wasn't really working out. But I'm glad you're back. Let's have a look at a big comment here from Tim. It's not going to fit on the screen, so I'm going to read it from the side here. Franchise success really does require a combination of factors to align: franchise selection, a great business model, franchisees following the system, and incredibly importantly, struggle to say that, franchisors recognizing that each franchisee is an individual with different mindsets, life experiences, communication styles. Support must be individualized to maximize success, very similar to Penny's explanation of how ops manuals should be constructed. Yeah, I think this is a really valid point. What do you make of this one? One thing I was picking out there is different mindsets, experience, communication styles. You know, they can all be incorporated when you call upon a system like this, can't they?
Yes, they can. And I mean, it really does require a combination of factors. They've all got to align. And my belief is that, you know, there are so many moving parts that the franchise model is unique, and it's one I believe so many other businesses should follow, even if they are not franchising to build a network. I think the model works absolutely perfectly in terms of quality standards, total quality management, and Kaizen, the Japanese concept of making small improvements, making a mighty difference.
Mm. I think that's really interesting. It's not something I thought about, actually.
Mm.
The idea of the principles of franchising being applied to a business that doesn't or never will franchise.
Mm.
Because what you want out of any business, if you are going to grow it beyond just you doing it and you being in control of everything, if you're going to grow it, you need consistency beyond your control. And to get that, if you use the principles of franchising, that's where you're going to hopefully be able to find those consistencies.
Yes, and this is, I mean, Manual Magic AI was built specifically with franchising in mind. However, it's for solopreneurs, SMEs, and multi-site businesses that may have nothing to do with being franchised, because the principles, I believe, are the successful formula that will make everybody more engaged, happier, motivated, and more productive.
Absolutely.
And therefore everybody wins. So why not follow the franchise system?
Mm. Yeah, as I say, I'd never heard that before, but I think it's a really, really valid point, and it's one of the many things I've already written down today. But I think if you're listening here today and you're thinking about franchising your business, even if you don't, remember what we said here today, because franchising as a model can certainly help you gain consistency in that quality control. I think it's fantastic. If you have just joined us today, this is the Franchise Show, and today we are discussing the smarter path to franchise success with the lovely Penny Hopkinson from Manual Magic AI. And please scan the QR code on the screen right now if you'd like to find out more about that. Get your ops manuals the right way round. Let's have a look. I think we've got somebody else with us today. We've got lovely Lisa Feverick with us. Lisa is a regular to the show. It's fantastic to have you with us, Lisa. Lisa is a specialist dietitian, has her own LinkedIn live show, and helps women who are going through the menopause enjoy a healthier lifestyle. So fantastic to have you with us. Great to hear your thoughts on today's subject. Let's have a look what Simon's put there. That's Tom. I have the same problem. Looks like Simon's drunk there, the way that's reading, but you go for it, Simon. Enjoy your evening. Look, I'm going to get back because I wrote down this word, prompts. Now, we spoke at the beginning about getting the right IP, the right information that the AI is going to call upon. You know, it's a bit like going to the library and opening up the right book on a subject you want to know about. It's no good if you open up something else, is it? So the other thing is, what do you ask and how do you ask it? Is that vital in terms of getting the most out of this software?
I'm not so sure that it's most important with our software, because it's been trained in such a way as to preempt this. But in general, most people use AI, and let's say let's use ChatGPT as an example, as a super Google. You know, they just ask it a question, tell me how to do something. They don't give any context, and that is what makes a huge difference. You know, it's asking those who, what, why, when, and where questions. So, for example, if I were to create an SOP, I would want to know all that. Who is this for? What's it all about? Why on earth should I follow this? You know, what result am I going to get? What is expected? Where am I going to do it? What am I going to use to, let's say, clean a floor? Because that might make a huge difference as to if I've got cleaning fluid, what I'm going to use on a table might not be suitable for a floor.
Mm.
So it's all about asking those questions, getting the context right, and following. If you don't get the answer you want, or you need something further, ask until you've got that prompt complete.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you're right, because again, my experience with AI, you can ask it a question, but you can add more color, more substance to that question, and you'll get, the more you ask and the better you frame the question, the better answer you're going to get back from. I think that goes across the board, don't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, that's the same. I was trained as a journalist, so I was trained to ask questions,
Mm,
and those questions had to draw out the information that the readers would want.
mm,
And you, first of all, you have to decide who your ideal reader is of the manual. If you haven't done that, how can you create content for them?
mm. Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
then you have to understand your brand voice. Now, we ask a series of questions right up front to ensure that the right brand voice and tone is communicated. And that is really important, because you wouldn't use the same um, tone of voice, you wouldn't address somebody in the same way and at a certain level, let's say a 15-year-old, if you're talking to a brand partner or a master franchisee who has got vastly more experience and is appointed as a result. I mean, a Costa Coffee brand partner would be part of a large organization who already has an HR department. They know all about it, but the difference is they don't know how to use it the Costa way or the quick fit way, and that is what you need to draw out. AI can go so far on your information. It can give the brand voice, but the one thing it can't do is to apply the nuances. So what we want to do is to use it to amplify your expertise and to draw out those nuances that make your brand unique.
Absolutely. I think that's really interesting. I think a brand voice is a really hard thing to capture.
It
And
is.
so it brings me on, and I'm going to come to Simon's question. We've got about 5 minutes left. But I was going to ask you, what's the biggest challenge when you're speaking to a business, a franchise, in terms of creating this? Is that the brand voice and how you get that across in the answers? Is that one of the biggest challenges? What's the
Yes,
hardest thing to do in this?
I think it is. I mean, I call it the soul, the DNA.
Mm,
And since the first manual I created for Champneys back in 1989, I think it was, when Guinness Enterprises had just bought Champneys and it was going to go global, it was important to capture that DNA because Champneys was one of the first health spas and certainly one of the health clubs. And the way that they had created the brand and what it stood for had to be captured. And so I think to differentiate myself from any other person who was creating a manual, I would major on that DNA because that soul, the soul of the brand, is ultimately what carries everyone through and makes that difference.
mm, mm. And capturing the soul of something that there's some real nuances, some real tiny things that makes one person different to another
Mm.
person. And I'm not talking here in businesses what your USP is. It's not that, right? This is different to that. This is what and I like voice, soul. These things really encapsulate it, and are really important. Let's have a quick look because we've got a couple of minutes left and we've got a couple of questions I think come in here. So we've got a question here from Simon. So let's have a quick look at this one. It's a big one. It says, it's a good point that there is a lot to be learned from the franchise architecture, but we must be mindful of the difference between the employer-employee relationship and the franchisor to franchisee relationship, the latter being the business-to-business relationship.
Mm.
I think we have lost sight of this somewhat in recent times when structuring the franchise system and how the relationships are managed. Yeah, what do you make of this one, Penny?
Yes, I think that's absolutely true. There is a big difference because you are not an employee as a franchisee. You're running your own business, but you have to have a relationship with your employees, your franchise teams, which I suppose you would say mirrors that of the franchisor. Because the franchisor sets the tone, and I would always say that the franchisor needs to be the employer of choice, number one choice, and the franchisee needs to follow that by becoming the number one choice for an employee.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Simon makes a really interesting point, which you followed up on beautifully there. There's similarities and big differences between those relationships.
Mm.
And I think it's identifying what those similarities are and how to put those in your business and what those differences are as well.
I would say that to make that difference, you talk about your franchisees as being your internal customers.
Yeah, I like that expression. Yeah.
So you've got your internal customers and then obviously your external customers.
Yeah, I'd never heard that as an expression as well. And I think that that's a really interesting way to look at it. Because with franchising, you insert a different layer into your business. If you are selling, or if you have a business that offers a service, whatever that service is, you have the business, the employees, and you're all offering that service to the user of that. With a franchise business, there's this other layer inserted into there. And sometimes that's a real challenge as to how we deal with that. Look, we are coming, in fact, we have come to the end of the first part of today's show. It's been a really fascinating conversation. So, of course, this is the bit where my camera goes off, and this time it isn't because I've broken something or knocked something off the wall. It's because you cannot see me without wearing a hat. And now I have an absolute beauty on. Now, of course, this part of the show is sponsored by my lovely friend and hatter, of course. This is Paul Murphy from PJ Murphy and Sons, bespoke British hatters. So if you'd like a beauty like this one, then reach out to Paul. Now, this is the part of the show where we're going to stop talking about manuals and Manual Magic AI, as fun as that was. And we're going to find out a little bit about Penny. And she can also get her own back on me, because I've asked her lots of questions. And as a journalist, I'm sure she's dying to ask me one. And I don't know what it's going to be. So I'm going to let her do that in a minute. But before I let you do that, let me ask you a question. I think last time we dealt with a little hobby or an interest that we didn't know about. This time, I think I'd like to ask you maybe about a claim to fame or someone famous that you've met. Have you got any good stories going back?
Well, I suppose I could say that there was a whole ruck of famous people, because I went to my local laundrette. This is many, many years ago. I think it was back in the 80s. And I was living in, well, they called it Holland Park because the Hilton was built in Holland Park, but it really was the Shepherd's Bush roundabout. Holland Park roundabout, very grandly. I used to go down to Shepherd's Bush with my washing and go to the local laundrette. And one day I arrived and Daisy said, "Oh, look who we've got here." And I was saying, "Who? What?" And she said, "Look at the back of their jackets." And it was the Stylistics. They were staying in the Hilton Hotel, and they had brought their washing to Daisy. Anyway, we all started chatting and having a jolly good time. It was absolutely great. And I said, "Well, if in a dull moment, I only live behind the Hilton, come and have coffee." So the lead singer came over. Then he invited me down to Dagenham, where they were going to do a gig and take a friend. And so the friend and I went down in their coach, saw the show, went backstage, had an absolute ball, had a great time coming back, and we kept in touch for a few years.
Wow, what an amazing story. All from a laundrette as well.
I know laundrettes have a lot going for them, not just round and round.
No, that's it. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. I love it. Well, look, I promise you could get your own back on me. You don't have to do this. You can let me get away with it if you wish. No one has so far, but I'm always hoping. Now, I don't know what's going to come, but you can ask me any question you like.
No, I certainly wouldn't let you get away with it. What I wondered was, as a teenager, was there a profession or something, a career path that you wanted to be, which of course has turned out to be completely different?
Gosh, let me think back. I wanted to be a vet. That's what I wanted to do when I was a very, very little boy. I think there was there's two things. Then I wanted to be a pilot. So I don't know which one you want to go down, but I think let's go for the vet one, because I loved and still do love animals, and the idea of wanting to be able to save animals really appealed to me. I think I struggled with the academics of the subjects that were required for that particular profession. And I think it dawned on me that the reality of it wouldn't be necessarily lots of saving animals' lives. There would be a lot of difficulties in that. And I really admire anybody, whether that's in the animal world or the people world, that can do that job, because it's really hard. But it was certainly something that I wanted to do as a little boy.
It's really, really interesting you should say that, because that is exactly what I wanted to be as a young vet.
There you go.
I went into our local vet, and he gave me the reality in a very brutal way.
Yeah.
So I became a journalist.
Well, that's it. But it's funny how life works out. But look, I love that. Great question. Look, Penny, thank you so much for being on the show. You were fantastic as always. It's a pleasure to have you on.
It was a pleasure to be on, and thank you very much. And thank you everybody for listening.
Most welcome. And I would also like to thank everyone who's been here live today, everyone who is going to watch this in the future as well. It was a fantastic episode. Please pop in a comment as well in the future, because we can always look at that and the conversation continues. Now, that leaves me just to explain what's happening next week on the Franchise Show. So join us, I think it's 4th of November. I should have checked that. But next Tuesday, 5:15 GMT, 12:15 EST, we will be talking to the lovely Stuart Gurman from Stuart Gurman Law in New Zealand. And we're going to be talking about franchising in New Zealand. So it's going to be a really interesting one. We're going to be talking about something that's the other side of the world, but how different is it? Well, we can find out next week. So until next time, my lovely friends, take very good care and see you next time. Cheerio.